Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Erich Kurschat. I'm the owner of Harmony Insights, LLC, a company that allows me to work with organizations and consultants using the DISC personality assessment, a lot of which is done online these days, both the assessment and the facilitation for teams that have not yet gone back to the office. So if you want to talk more about that, we certainly can. In the meantime, or in addition to that, I should say, I'm the founder of HR Hot Seat, which is an inclusive mastermind community of, as we say, real HR pros solving real HR problems. And we have over 2,500 of them at this point in 10 different licensed chapters around the country. So much going on, all virtual and all free at this point. Always free, actually, but virtual now since we can't leave our homes or are on the brink of being able to do so. And you can find out more about HR Hot Seat at, guess what, hrhotseat.com. In the meantime, more immediately, you are here for a Harmony Insights lunch date. I've been doing these for several weeks at this point, really simply to be inspired by people who inspire me. And our guest today, Kate Suerth from Launchways, is on that short list, we'll say. Kate, welcome to today's Harmony Insights lunch date.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric, for having me. Excited to see everyone.
It is nice to see you. It would have been a great conversation, just you and I, but it's fun to see people joining us for it. Before we continue and get to our featured guest today, because it isn't all me talking, it's actually about Kate today, I do want to mention something that I mentioned on Tuesday, and it's that I thought about canceling these conversations, these lunch dates this week, given everything that's going on. And it was kind of a tough decision. I decided to continue forward with them out of respect to our guests who had scheduled their time accordingly for the week, but then also out of respect for those of you who really wanted to have these conversations and wanted to show up for them because they inspire you in some way. I'm still trying to figure out what words I have to describe what I'm feeling about what's going on now and how I want to contribute to this larger discussion around race relations, etc. In the meantime, I feel very strongly about continuing with any effort to bring people together for meaningful connection and productive conversation on any topic. And so at least this is my way of contributing is through these lunch dates, or one of the ways that I feel like I contribute is through these lunch dates. So I decided to go forward with them, and I hope that they remain inspiring to you and that you leave our conversation today ready to do your best work and to contribute to larger discussions that are happening now in the world. So I'm just going to leave it at that. But I thought it was important to mention that this is a very intentional decision that I've made going forward this week. All of that being said, Kate, I am thrilled that you are with us today. You are the senior client strategist for Launchways, as I know you. We have a fantastic relationship through the HR Hot Seat community. Thanks for being with us. Could you start by giving people a sense of what it is about this topic that you have chosen, which we've titled Being Human, the Impact of Personal Connection on Relationships and Business. And as a side note, so many of these lunch dates have been on the topic of connection. What is it about who you are, where you work, that you feel positions you well for this conversation today about personal connection and being human?
Yeah, thank you, Eric. So I'm so excited to be here, you guys. I love talking, so you'll see that today. And I just am so excited about like every single topic in life. And you could tell me you drank coffee in the morning. I'll be like, that's so wonderful.
That's great enthusiasm. We need that around us at times, right?
Yes, so much. So what really, part of my role and who I am as a person, I'll kind of dive into this in a little bit, is I was actually adopted, but my personality, I'm so passionate about getting to know people on that human level and that personal level, not just what's your favorite color, but really diving deep into getting to know the person that I'm connecting with, because at the end of the day, people want to work with people and people want to work with a human. And when you get to know someone on a deeper or, personal level, that person will always remember you, whether it was something funny they said, as I'm sure of you have been on HR Hot Seat. I love telling jokes and funny things like that, but people will always remember something that you asked or something that you told them. So that's what I kind of do in my day-to-day work life and personal life as well, is really connect with people so that they feel confident and they can trust me on not only helping them in a business aspect, but really connecting with them on a personal level. And I just get so excited talking to people and getting to know them. So
I love your positivity and your energy and enthusiasm. That's one of the things that connected me with you early on. And so I appreciate it. And one of the reasons why I wanted to ask you to join us today. Um, and you've mentioned, it's in our title, and you've already mentioned it, that this is something that can benefit us not only personally, but from a business perspective. I would suppose in terms of the companies that we represent and the business that we're doing through those companies. Um, I want to start out by, I feel like there's so much that we have to talk about today.
yes.
I would love to start out by identifying some of the challenges that our attendees and eventual listeners, because this is being recorded as well for future distribution. What are some of the challenges that you feel we face today around being human in the way that we connect personally and professionally with other folks?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge, we don't know how to turn off, at times. We kind of have this work hat, or this, I'm a mom of a 1.5-year-old. So this mom hat, or, a wife hat, whatever it may be. And we don't know how to just turn off and connect to people on, again, that personal level, on just kind of breaking down those barriers. But a lot of people will ask, like, how do you initiate that, or how do you start that? And I think it's, a lot of people have been asking, how are you? And instead of asking almost, how are you? It can be something like, what is your greatest accomplishment in your personal life? What are you most proud of? Where were you born and raised? That gives an insight to just where they come from. So I think that people right now can challenge on, when do you ask those personal questions without kind of overstepping and maybe making the other person feel uncomfortable, or they're not quite there yet, to when can you really get that connection by talking more and whatnot.
So it sounds to me like that it takes being curious, and probably genuinely so, right? And you asked that question, how are you, which I think is such an important question. Actually, I get some emails with nothing more than that from friends and colleagues, just saying, how are you doing these days? Which I really appreciate, but I appreciate it because I know it's genuine.
Yes,
Right. So if I get an email or someone calls me that I don't know, and they're saying, how are you? And I see it as a scripted question, then I'm probably going to immediately go into my scripted answer. Fine. How are you?
yeah,
Yeah, things are great. Well, that things are not great, as a
exactly.
matter
And
of
then
fact.
yeah, and it's surface level. You want to kind of dive deeper into really understanding, how really are they? And when I was a child, I had a best friend that lived across the street, and her mom would always tell her she couldn't come out and play at a certain time of the day. I would keep calling and calling and calling. Can you come out and play now? How about now? Like, can you ask your mom if you can come now? Because you wanted that persistence in just the innocence and the pure joy of just wanting to go play outside with your friend, is, don't be afraid to break those barriers and ask those questions.
I thought about just yesterday, actually, I talked with a really close friend, and she said, how are you? And I said, I'm fine. How are you? And I immediately stopped. And and I said, I thought to myself, and I don't know how conscious this was, but part of my inner monologue was, this is somebody that I trust, that I want to get to know. I want them to know how I'm doing. And I said, honestly, I'm not fine. And for these reasons. And we had a much better conversation because I was willing to open up in that way. But that leads me to what I see, at least, and I want to get your opinion on, as another challenge, that there is a certain vulnerability, as I see it, to not only asking these questions that you're referring to, but then also answering them. What is your take um, on the vulnerability side of this?
Yeah, I think it's, again, it's breaking down those walls. I learned something truly amazing from our mutual friend, Aaron Deal, who is so fantastic. And when you ask a question, be really prepared to listen to their answer and then repeat it back to them almost in like first person, and say, so what I heard was, your favorite color is blue. You like blue because it reminds you of the sky. You really kind of connect, and then you break down their worry of asking you that question, and then your connection, I guess, back to to their question with your answer. And it really just, it kind of connects you on that personal level. So instead of just asking a question like, how are you? I'm good. And it's kind of just like, oh, what do we do next? Because there are a lot of networking events, it's like, hi, how are you? Like, I don't know where to go now. Instead of avoiding that, you're just kind of question after question. And, hopefully you have the right audience. They don't get too annoyed with you. But I think it, again, makes you feel like, wow, they really care about, what my hobbies are or what I like to do to de-stress from a work day.
So asking meaningful questions, listening actively to the response, maybe repeating it if it's helpful, not only for you to remember, but for them to demonstrate that you've actually heard them, for them to, be comfortable with that. You've mentioned the networking word, which is something that I like to talk about, especially in terms of introverts doing it, but all of us and all different personality styles, which is a conversation I'm very familiar with. I would imagine a number of our attendees, and honestly, chime in again, use this chat area if anything that we're talking about really resonates with you. I'd love to hear what challenges people are facing around this topic specifically.
Yes,
but when it comes to networking, professional networking, in person or online, LinkedIn, is it possible to connect meaningfully with people when you are networking professionally with people that you've never met before?
Yeah, I think it is. I do a lot of my outreaches on LinkedIn. I think, emails are great, but in this virtual world, like try to again humanize even the sales process, the company aspect, and break down those walls. So whether it's something, you recently read, a book, a movie you watched, something you noticed on their activity feed that they liked, by engaging in those topics, it kind of brings you together in a connection. So instead of just saying, it breaks down that connection wall to reach out to people. I simply at times will reach out on my LinkedIn Connect and just say, relationships are really important to me. Looking forward to connecting with you and building a long-term, relationship. Hope you're doing great. Let's connect live sometime and just chat. You're kind of you're going right to the point. And I just want a friend.
People who have attended other lunch dates have heard this rant, and I'll keep it short, but I feel like we've been conditioned to think that when we hit the connect button, we're connected with people. Like that is meaningful connection, is hitting the connect button. And it's more than that. It doesn't have to be a ton more than that, but even something as simple as providing context when you connect with somebody to say, this is how I know you. I read this thing that you wrote. I listened to you speak recently. You were on this podcast or at this conference, and I'm really looking forward to learning from you going forward. But instead we get either nothing, or we get, oh, we have a bunch of people in common. We have a bunch of common connections. It's like, well, that's a start, I suppose. Better than nothing, but still doesn't really give me the sort of context that I'm looking for to understand how I can be of service to you going forward. And so, I may not connect by asking you what your favorite flavor of ice cream is necessarily, unless I think that's going to be appropriate. But it sounds like what you're saying is really be intentional about personalizing your communication with other people in a way that goes beyond just sort of the scripted questions that we might normally ask.
Exactly. Even when you are connected to multiple people, everyone has their own personality, their own story, their own, human element. And I think you need to connect with that person one-on-one versus just lumping yourself in a group, because we all build connections one-on-one, but then come together as a group.
Yeah. I appreciate Hannah contributing to the conversation. She's in Finland. I know Hannah. I met her recently. She's from Wisconsin. She is now in Finland. And she's saying it's not normal to make meaningful small talk. She said friendship is quite deep and genuine here and can take a long time to build before people actually open up to one another. In meetings, nobody asks, how are you? It's always just jumping into the meeting and business at hand. It can be very jarring if you're not already used to it. That's really fascinating. And it reminds me how so much of this is probably culturally dependent, maybe in some ways, just as nonverbal communication and other forms of communication are. Maybe there are some cultures where you're not going to walk up to somebody and really get into deeper conversation. Do you have any experience traveling outside of the United States, Kate, and attempting to connect with people in this way?
I do. My whole family is from Norway. So I've been to Norway about 6 times,
Oh,
and
wow.
they're so friendly over there. Um, and, and my honeymoon was in Costa Rica as well. But, connecting with people over there, they can make such a powerful impact, especially from a business standpoint too. Their thought leadership can be very different from ours in America. And you kind of get a different perspective, and you can then take those skills that you've learned and use it in your conversations.
Are you saying that it was that it was similar to or dissimilar to how you connect with people here? Did you feel like you could go deep with folks that you didn't know terribly well?
I could, only because of family connections in a
Okay.
way, but not necessarily. I think their approach, I learned how to like follow their lead to then get almost what I want out of it, which
Yeah.
is that deeper connection.
Yeah. How interesting, taking cues from other people, because maybe people aren't connecting in Finland, Hannah, in the same way, but maybe there's something else that they do. Like maybe there's another way that people are reaching out to one another there, um, that would be foreign, so to speak, to us, that we're not as familiar with. So that would be interesting to have a conversation just about those things. So Kate, I think we've painted a really good picture of the challenges that we face personally when attempting to connect. For those of us who are representing a brand, a company, why is meaningful connection so important in that context?
Are you asking me? Sorry, everyone
Yes,
else.
Kate. Yeah, I was
Oh,
asking
I'm
you.
sorry.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine.
Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
Yeah, well, you were talking about how we've painted a picture about the challenges that we face personally, but you've also mentioned that it's important to connect meaningfully with others for the sake of a brand or a company that you might be representing. So knowing
Yeah.
that you're the senior client strategist for Launchways, for example, and I have great respect for Launchways. They've been a longtime partner of HR Hot Seat. I said they, I mean you.
Yeah.
um, why is it important to you to connect meaningfully with other people in terms of the company and the brand that you're representing in Launchways?
Yeah, I think that there's a couple areas and why it's so important. The first would just be, I think it's really crucial for company culture on taking those moments to, again, interact with your teams, or, some companies have different levels and different managers and different teams. And I've had over 10 managers in my entire career. Everyone managed so differently, and you can't manage people the same. I strongly believe that you have to get to know that person, and whether they're an introvert or an extrovert, like understanding from what they feel is their single best skill that they're going to contribute to the organization, to what they feel, and it's an honest conversation. What do you feel most vulnerable with, or things that you want to continue to grow, or 6 months from now I want to be an expert in Excel, or in adding 10 new clients, or whatever it may be. And then what makes them productive, because that will then tailor how you're motivated. People are motivated by, whether it's their family, or they're motivated by going on a vacation, or they're motivated by their personal time to just watch Real Housewives, like whatever it may be. To be able to connect on that level will drive results. They'll drive business connections, and they'll drive, you know, just a really good working environment, and there won't be turnover,
Yeah,
I think, because, yeah.
it makes me think of I'm in the disc workshops that I do. We talk about the golden rule, which is treat others the way that you would want to be treated, and someone along the way coined the platinum rule, which is treat others the way that they would want to be treated. And
Love
work,
that.
it takes some work, right? Because I'm assuming, okay, if I'm detail oriented, you must be as well, so I'm going to manage you in that way. Or if you've done something well and I don't really care for the spotlight, I'm not going to give you the spotlight. I'm not going to give you that very public pat on the back that you may actually prefer. And it's when you
Yeah.
get to that point, and I think you made it really well, that we are understanding how people are motivated, how they would prefer to be communicated with, how they would prefer to be managed or led, how they prefer to do their best work in what environments. When you get to the point that you're considering those things, now suddenly you're able to make meaningful connections in a way that you would never if you were taking a more quick cookie cutter approach to how you're interacting with your teammates.
Yeah, and I'd say a biggest takeaway too for everyone that has been a manager, or everyone has probably someone above them as well, is like manage the old saying, manage your manager. If you're not being heard, or you want to get to know them more and how they operate, like you said, it can be very different. Then you have that context on, how to solve those problems together and feel like a unified team, and taking the culture and breaking it down by, not people biggest mistake is they work too much. Especially in this environment, they don't know when to cut those times for that connection, personally, professionally, and kind of break down those barriers.
Yeah. Asking. I think that's so powerful. I've had, even at the end of a full workshop, I'll do a disc workshop and people say, well, that's all fine and good. We appreciate the disc stuff. But what if we don't have the luxury of having our team members complete an assessment and come together for a workshop like this? How do we ever find out what motivates them and what they value and what they prioritize? And I'm like, guess what? You ask them. You sit down with them face to face, whether there's somebody that you're leading or a peer or someone that you report to, and ask, what is valuable to you? How do you prefer that I communicate with you? You want bullet points? Would you prefer paragraphs because you value information? Do you want me to come knock on your door so we have a face-to-face conversation? Would you rather that I wait until a certain time of the day where you're not going to be as busy? And asking those questions demonstrates, I think, such a commitment to this meaningful connection that you're talking about, to say, I'm not going to just assume what you want from me. Maybe I'm observant enough that I can pick it up in your behavior, but why not just sit down and ask somebody face to face? Do you think that happens often enough in the workplace?
I don't. I think there needs to be more of it. I'm on a culture committee at Launchways, because I'm just excited and I love to talk and bring people together. But there's little things that you can do to even kick that off, because I don't think, to your point, it happens that much, or people aren't taking the time, or they're not having enough breakout sessions with, maybe I call it camp Launchways, actually, where you kind of have a teammate that you're paired with. Maybe you wear the same color that week. It's like you're at camp and you get to know something about that person, then you share it with the group, or you take away something new. So there's creative ways people can go about it. And that's kind of what I help them come up with, on how to connect not only to their clients, to their peers, to their employees, and how to make those meaningful decisions on when to implement and when to act on these questions, and getting to know one another.
So let me put you on the spot. Let's role play this, right? And just kind of see how it goes. So this isn't scripted, and I actually didn't tell you that this was going to happen, but I'm curious from you, and you can tee it up however you want. I'm curious then, if I come up to you in a networking event and I say, okay, my goal is meaningful connection. My goal is to get something meaningful out of you, to really learn something about you. I might come up and say something like, it's so nice to meet you, and I've heard so much about the work that you do with Launchways, et cetera. I'd love to know more about you. What can you share that, not that I'm saying this word for word, but in my head, I'm thinking, what can this person share that is going to allow us to connect more meaningfully and deeply going forward, something that I might remember? So I'll decide how I want to phrase that. And even with somebody you don't know, how are you, Kate Suerth, going to respond in a way that I'm going to remember you, I'm going to remember our conversation, and take something from it that I can play on later in some way?
Yeah. So I'm really big on, right off the bat, sharing a personal, story about myself, and kind of tees up nicely for the adoption. And, when growing up, I had wanted a baby brother or baby sister, or I'd start with, I'd like to share something personal about you to really break down our walls and have this be a deeper conversation.
So almost asking permission, right? To be a little bit more personal than you might be otherwise. Yeah.
And I would say, is it okay that I share something personally with you? Because it really will tee up almost like our relationship going forward, and how I operate in a way.
Interesting. So I'm then thinking, sorry to cut you off, but I'm immediately thinking she's going to respond in some way that's going to give me a sense of what she values and who she is in a very deep way. We're going to cut through this superficial baloney that you get so often at networking events.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a certain vulnerability. This could, I'm not going to say go so far as to say it could be scary, but like this could be a conversation that I'm just not used to having in a professional sense.
Oh, for sure. And you would hear like I'll do the Cliff Notes version for sure because of
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I had always wanted a baby brother, baby sister, but my mom who raised me had stage 4 ovarian cancer. And so they had to choose to adopt. So I was adopted, and I was always told from a young age, someone had to have you for mommy and daddy, and was always had this honesty approach and was treated as if I was their biological child and loved. And, and this kind of tailors to the world we live in right now, continues to love everyone. But in the back of my mind, I had always thought, like, why didn't someone want me? Or these like deeper levels. And so growing up, I had always said this honesty, like my parents could have chosen to lie to me. They could have chosen to be not forthcoming. So I always took away, like every connection I made, like there's a story there and there's a human element and there's a deeper level. And I'm just so passionate, and like, I love my adoption story. And, I actually had met my birth mom, which for those of you who like are curious, like feel free to message me or whatnot. But I share my story at adoption agencies because, a lot of times you don't hear from the adopted child and how they felt growing up, but it's so important to just share how you feel and connect. And then essentially it's built my relationships by just being so excited and honest with people. And it's who I am that has built so many relationships. And I've stayed at a company prior to Launchways for 8 years because people really got to know me and hear my story and whatnot. So that's shaped me, and I would break down those walls right away. And there's other stories I have, other than just adoption. It's, I've been show jumping on horses since I was 11. And it's an individual sport, but I'll tell you, it shaped me on building connections because team sports can get competitive. Like, I just want to be everyone to win and everyone to have this empowerment to go out and build themselves up on whatever makes them happy.
Yeah. Well, I love that you shared that story, and I appreciate that you did. And you may not, you may pick and choose when you share that. You're not going to hit everybody with that that you meet
Correct.
at a networking event, but I love
Yeah.
how you focused on story. I heard just this morning, I attended the HR summer school that Ben Eubanks is doing online, and it goes through tomorrow. Actually, it's pretty fantastic. You should look it up.
Great.
But somebody mentioned that the shortest distance between any two people is a story. And I love that. You want to connect with people, tell them something about yourself that they might not know otherwise. And suddenly I have a sense of who you are. Maybe we're not even talking business. It has nothing to do with what we do professionally, but it's something about you that I really can hold on to and appreciate because you've shared it. Kate,
exactly.
This has been...
And then I was going to say really quick to that point with that, with the honest, or like you got a sense of who I was. And like I pick up what I recommend to everyone is pick up a key word. So like you heard honesty. So when you think business wise, when you want to work with someone or that you need help, whether it's finding a job, like, they'll take a very honest approach. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So
Great.
That's how you just connect it.
Yeah. Thank you for that. If you can believe it, 30 minutes have come and gone, and I can't say how much I appreciate you being willing to join us today and to share your perspective on connecting meaningfully. And people, speaking of connecting, are going to want to find you and learn more about your work with Launchways and how you help organizations. And how can they find you online?
Yeah, so you guys can find me on LinkedIn, and I don't actually know my LinkedIn name by heart, but I think it's just like Kate Suerth on LinkedIn.
Start with Kate Suerth. That'll help.
Yeah. There's also, Eric will be sending everyone, it's my bio page that I make and I share with everyone that I meet. It gives you a sense about me personally and professionally. So that has my email. My cell phone number is 312-505-5146.
There we go. It's going to be ringing off the hook now. It's out there.
Even for future video people that see this, like, y'all have my number. And then my email is just ksuerth@launchways.com, but we'll make sure that you guys all get that.
Wonderful. As Kate mentioned, I am going to be following up with people via email who registered to attend today. And so you'll get some links to some of the stuff that we've shared in this conversation. And if you, oh, I remember, I was like, what do I usually say at this point? If you enjoyed this conversation, and I hope you did, I would love for you to go back to harmonyinsights.com/lunch dates. We have a couple just amazing conversations coming up in the next couple of weeks, including with Steve Brown, who's a big name in the HR world, Jennifer McClure, I just announced this morning, who is the CEO of Disrupt HR, all of the Disrupt HR organization, and a couple others that are on the calendar with more being added. That's all at harmonyinsights.com/lunch dates, and is all free, is all meant to just bring people together for this meaningful, actionable conversation that we have. At this point, if you need to go about your afternoon, we respect that. I hope you do so just ready to tackle whatever comes next. Or for those of you who are in other parts of the world, maybe it's much later than your afternoon. If you want to stick around, you can unmute yourself at this point and continue the conversation with us just for a few minutes. In the meantime, Kate, just again, thank you so much for spending time with us
Thank
this
you,
afternoon.
guys. I feel so honored, and like I'm just so excited I got to meet all of you guys too.